It was early in 1964 that David Oldmeadow and Malcolm Douglas gave up their jobs to travel Australia. The dogs shared the excitements and dangers of the trip. Suva is dead. Scruffy survives. Climbing into the front seat is Malcolm, who came to boarding school in Australia from the phosphate island of Nauru. He left school to join a wool firm, working on the big outback stations, and later becoming a stock agent in the bush. Malcolm and David originally planned to be away for 12 months. The 12 months stretched into 4 years, always moving on, looking for new adventures. How does such a journey begin? They bought a Land Rover, spent 12 weeks fitting it out and buying equipment. On a cold winter day in June, they left Melbourne behind and headed north. Many city dwellers must long to do the same. For most, it would be better to share David's and Malcolm's experiences through this film. This remarkable film deals with the last 12 months of this journey, showing areas that few people have ever seen. From Darwin to Cape York, through little-known Arnhem Land, around the Gulf of Carpentaria, then up the Cape York Peninsula to the very tip of Australia. Malcolm Douglas and David Oldmeadow take you across the top.
The port of Darwin, busy wharves on the edge of a tropical harbour. Nearby, the Methodist Mission supply boat has been beached for repairs. On the incoming tide, we climb aboard, ready for our trip along the Arnhem Land coast. Leaving the harbour, we sail out into Clarence Strait, heading for Van Diemen's Gulf and the Arafura Sea. The boat is manned by a captain and crew of full-blood Aborigines. They carry supplies to isolated mission stations along the coast of Arnhem Land. These settlements support about 3,000 Aborigines. 2 days out from Darwin, conditions are good with only slight seas running. 3 days and nights of this, and we reach Milingimbi. Supplies are unloaded, and we disembark. Suva and Scruffy have had quite enough of the sea. They're anxious to get ashore. For Dave and me, this is our second trip to the island. Old friends are here to meet us. Milingimbi is situated on one of the Crocodile Islands, 3 miles from the mainland. It's a mission caring for about 700 Aborigines. They camp beneath giant tamarind trees, which grew from seeds left here hundreds of years ago by traders from Macassar and the Celebes. This old woman, her face distorted by the dread disease leprosy, waits patiently for the end. Days later, she is dead. Dave and I, because we've been accepted by the tribe, are allowed to watch and share the people's grief. The dead woman's relatives keep up a continuous wailing and throw themselves on the ground. A blanket covers the dead woman and her closest relative, a sister. The grief-stricken sister appears for a drink of water, and the wailing goes on. The husband shows his anger and drives the evil spirits from the camp. He believes these spirits caused his wife to die. All day, all night, the mournful wailing continues. The men gather and begin the long death ceremonies. These Aborigines believe that when a person dies, the spirit leaves the body and returns to the sacred tribal waterhole. Each tribe has its own waterhole somewhere in Arnhem Land. When the initial shock of the death is over, preparations are made to help the spirit on its journey. Age-old dances mime the wanderings of the soul to its final resting place, the sacred waterhole where the tribe actually keeps its sacred totems and ceremonial objects. And when the spirit finally reaches the waterhole, it assumes the identity of one of the sacred totems, usually a fish or an animal. These totems are now being painted on the bodies of the ceremonial dancers. The people believe that if they fail to give the spirit the correct farewell, it'll return and cause trouble. The tribe's sacred waterhole is symbolized on this man's body. This must be done so that the ancestors of the deceased know the correct waterhole to guide the spirit to after its wandering. The paint is white clay mixed with water. The brush, a piece of stick chewed at the tip. Here, ritual objects are prepared for the dancers. It takes all day to paint the intricate designs on the bodies of the dancers, and finally, their faces are whitened with clay. Spray painting in its oldest form. Backstage, the men receive their final instructions. They dance at sunset, and within minutes, the artistic designs on their bodies are washed away with perspiration. Leaving the preparation area, which is forbidden to women and children, the men move into the main camp where everyone can watch. The dancers stir up the imaginary waters of the waterhole, chasing the catfish. They mime the actions of all the animals associated with the age-old rites, and so the old woman's spirit is led to its resting place with song and dance. Leaving Milingimbi, we head for Nalala on the Australian mainland. Scruffy and Suva have to travel steerage. The natives are afraid of them, and Suva doesn't like it one bit. Nalala is situated on the edge of the vast Arafura swamp. That's it, marked in green. This is one of the most remote areas in the whole of Australia. The Arafura swamp is only part of Arnhem Land. It's a huge area of wild country set aside for those Aborigines who still prefer to live a tribal way of life. These semi-nomadic people are the ones Dave and I are going to live with for the next 5 months. The camp at Nalala is just a scattered collection of bark huts. The population varies from 20 to 80, depending on the season. It's the end of the day and the women are arriving back in camp after collecting firewood. That 4-gallon drum is full of water. It weighs at least 40 pounds. Each man has a number of wives and many children. And although these people are now Australian citizens with the right to vote, they speak no English and have little understanding of white civilization. When this baby is a young man, his tribal life will be gone, and this film will become a record of a lost way of life. This couple is exceptional. One man, one wife. The husband, Rachi, has been promised other brides, but he gave them away to his brothers. He's devoted to his first wife. As they sit together, she twists strips of banyan bark into bush string. It's very strong, and Rachi will use it in his fishing nets, his spears, and totems, and she'll use it for making baskets. Rachi carves a goanna, a lizard. He'll sell this to the mission, which will send it with other totems to a tourist shop somewhere in Australia. Rachi and his wife will use the money to buy commodities introduced by the white man, such as guns, torches, and fishing lines. Now Pupu weaves a dilly bag. She'll use it to carry her belongings and for collecting food, wild fruit and berries. A cheerful soul, though she suffers dreadfully from sore eyes caused by sleeping too close to the smoking campfires. Commotion in the camp. A python has just been killed and Jungle Bali becomes a teacher. He calls the children together and explains that this snake is not poisonous. It can be eaten. The python is not eaten raw, though, so the children are giving a lesson in fire making. First, take a loose ball of bark fibre, put it on the ground, hold it in place with a strip of softwood. The softwood has been slightly grooved in one place. The fire maker puts a hardwood stick into the hollow and rotates the stick quickly. In a matter of seconds, the dust from the softwood begins to smoulder and overflows onto the bark fibre beneath. The fibre is picked up smouldering and then gently coaxed into flame. And there it is, homemade fire in 30 seconds. And once the fire is good and hot, the snake and a long-necked tortoise can be tossed onto it. Aborigines cook their food very quickly and eat it almost raw. With a genuine bark tablecloth and a hand for a knife and a foot for a fork, it's time to tuck into hot, steaming snake. It takes Dodie a week to finish this painting, and then we sit together and he tells me how the Wagalug men, missing their women and children, set out for Arnhem Land in search of them. They discovered the blood-covered stones and they knew that something terrible had happened. That night, as the men were asleep, the spirits of the Wagalug women came to them and taught them all the sacred songs and rituals. The women told the men that they must circumcise their sons as a sign of manhood, a custom which is still practiced today. And at Nalala, Dave and I witnessed one of these sacred initiation ceremonies for ourselves. These two boys are being prepared for the ceremony which will take them from the status of women to the status of men. They are to be made men of the tribe. From the ages of 12 to 14, all boys go through a period of intensive instruction in the myths and beliefs of the tribe. Before the actual ceremony, the totemic designs of the tribe are painted on the boys' bodies. Dave and I spent so much time with these people, we were allowed to witness these extraordinary rites. The ritual area of the camp is cleared and the final dances begin. Over the next hour or so, the tension mounts towards a frightening and unforgettable experience, even to an onlooker. Fear on the faces of the boys. The singers and didgeridoo players begin their final songs. The dancers move in, surging around the initiative. The boys are placed on top of their uncles and pinned in position. The men cry out to help the boys bear the pain and prevent the women from hearing the screams. Once, a sharp shell was used. Today, it's a razor blade. The men crowd in around the doctor. You see, it's taboo for the women to watch. The circumcision over, the boys are rushed back to the men's ground where many taboos are placed on them. They're not allowed to speak for weeks. They must not eat many types of food, and to look at women is forbidden. The bleeding is stopped by placing a heated leaf from a particular tree over the wound. The leaf stops infection and promotes healing. The tension over, the proud doctor takes a drink of water from a paper bark vessel.